Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm your host, Kevin Schroeder, and I can't say I'm here with my co-host because he's not here today. The famous Captain Ed Mehmet, I think he's out running, campaigning to run for mayor for New York City, something like that, but he'll be back next week. So I'd like to introduce our guest today. We have a good guest right out from the West Coast, Las Vegas, Nevada. His name is Allyn Goodrich, and besides being an author, he just recently wrote a book, but he's also an active SWAT member, a member of the Las Vegas Police Department SWAT team. Allyn, welcome.
Hey, how are you, sir? Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I mean, I know that, time difference 3 hours, and I'm sure you're just getting up about now. But we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to this interview. Allyn, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, when you came on the job?
Sure, absolutely. I'm one of those local Las Vegas, Nevada people, and grew up most of my entire life in Nevada, and I started my law enforcement career young in age. I was probably 22 when I was in the academy, 2006. So I'm coming up on nearly 2 decades on the job. That's how you guys say it, right? On the job?
On the job, exactly.
On the job, yeah. So,
well, what do you guys say out there? You don't say on the job? What do you say?
No, I heard that's an East Coast thing.
Well, what do you guys say in the West Coast?
How long have you, been employed? I don't know, but we don't say on the job. I know that's specific for you.
but if you pulled someone over in Las Vegas and he said, "Hey, I'm on the job," you would get it, right? You would understand.
A new guy would not, but yeah, they would get it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've got almost 2 decades on the job, had a really cool career, and just got super lucky to be a part of a lot of details that I probably didn't deserve, but started off in patrol, which everybody does, and did my time in patrol. And right after patrol, I got put in this unit, which was kind of like a bunch of young bucks who were really excited to go out there and, arrest people and crush the bad guys. We called that a saturation team. And basically it was 12 guys who would go into a neighborhood with lots of high crime rates, and we would just arrest everybody. And it was a lot of fun because it's a close-knit group of guys and everybody's excited. I did the saturation team for a few years. After that, I went to a kind of a part of that same team, but it was a Homeland Security based. Okay. So we protected critical infrastructure, and we did a lot of executive protection and dignitary protection. So I got to meet a lot of cool people and do a lot of special things over there. From there, that kind of sort of got my foot in the door with the Bureau, and I became a detective. And a lot of people are really curious about being a detective in Las Vegas, but I was lucky enough to be on a unit called the Tourist Crimes Unit. And in a nutshell, we basically did every kind of crime you could think about on the Strip. And I got lucky enough to be selected as our team's undercover. And so basically I went and spent every night, we worked the worst hours, the worst days off. You're working nights on the weekends, but you're on the Strip buying drugs and picking up women. So,
okay. So the tourist, what was it called again? The
Tourist Crimes Unit.
Okay. So did you concentrate on, did you guys do pickpockets as well?
We did everything. So we did a lot of theft related stings and operations. We did a lot of prostitution related crimes. We did a lot of narcotics. And so basically anything, we were left to our own imaginations. Whatever crimes that would be active and working on the Strip, we would go out there and crush it. And I had a really interesting boss, and he taught me really young, there's like 3 types of people on the Strip. You have tourists, you have locals who work on the Strip, and he's like, everyone else, I want arrested. So,
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, so we could leave the tourists to enjoy themselves and enjoy the lights of Las Vegas, and the locals who work their butts off, making that machine run, we want to make sure they were safe and be able to do their jobs and have fun. And everybody else was who we were looking for. So it was a lot of fun, but I grew up a real sheltered Christian youth. And so going from church every Sunday to, growing a beard and saying things to women you shouldn't say, except on the job, was kind of an interesting switch for me, being the squad's designated undercover. So had a lot of fun doing that. Spent my couple of years there, went to more of a generalized detective assignment in the downtown area, and I was working shootings and stabbings and robberies, and got to really put together a little bit more complex investigations. Did that for a handful of years. After that, I went to once again, I kind of went back to an undercover unit. It was called the Central Intelligence Unit, where once again I spent a lot of time doing surveillance and high-profile cases and working with a lot of informants, and once again in an undercover capacity. So got to grow my beard and long hair again. And then from there, basically, I had a lot of friends who had gone to the SWAT team, and they were really trying to convince me to test for SWAT. And it was really, as a kid, I always wanted to be on SWAT. But once I became a cop, I just had so much fun being an undercover that I couldn't see myself ever leaving the freedom of being an undercover agent, doing whatever you wanted, and having freedom to, putting on the uniform and the kit again. I just couldn't see myself doing it. But I had a lot of really close friends convince me to come up and put some time into the SWAT team. And now I've been there ever since, and I can't believe it happened, but I'm super grateful of my time now that I've been on the SWAT team.
No, that's great. That's great work. So, as you know, have you ever been to New York?
No, I haven't.
Well, when you do come up, you have to visit the NYPD. We don't have a SWAT team, but very similar is ESU, Emergency Service Unit. Basically does everything that SWAT does, but we don't call it SWAT. We call it ESU. And they pretty much, that's our SWAT team here in New York City. But next time you come up, it'd be great. They'd probably love to meet you and exchange stories, How does it work with promotions in the department? You come on as a police officer, and then is there a test for sergeant? How does it work?
Yeah, so all of our positions are testable, with the exception of one of the units I was in was a direct transfer, but everywhere else is so our detectives are testable units. So even though being a detective is not a promotion per se, it is a pay raise, and it comes with a lot more of those perks for your retirement. But once you take the sergeant's exam, our sergeant is our next step above police officer. Sergeants is the next promotion. And if you're in a certain unit, like let's say if I were to promote to a sergeant as a SWAT team operator, I would have to leave SWAT and go back to patrol.
Okay.
And then after that, if you were in a certain unit let's say you were a SWAT sergeant, and then you promoted to our next step would be lieutenant, you would once again go back to patrol. So each one of these promotions, you have to leave the unit you're in and start back in patrol.
And then work your way back.
Correct.
Okay. And how did the ranks go? Police officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain?
Captain, and then deputy chiefs, under sheriffs, and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, we have sergeant, lieutenant, captain, deputy inspector, assistant chief, deputy chief. And how many members of the Las Vegas Police Department?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head. That's a good question, because if I say the wrong answer, people will hammer me. But it's big.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have is there a mandatory retirement age that you have to retire?
We don't have there's not a mandatory retirement age. We have a minimum retirement age and time contract, but not a certain time that you can't do the job anymore.
Well, let's talk about that. What type of pension plan do you have?
We have a really good pension plan. So depending on when you hired on, I'm looking at, the last couple of years of my career. I'm going to do 25 years and I'll be done, which is coming up pretty quick. So I have a contract where I can leave at 25. The newer guys hiring on will probably have to stay to 30 plus years before they'll be eligible for retirement or a certain age. So I just got lucky with being hired on so young.
So you could stay till you're 70?
If you're healthy, sure.
Yeah, okay. So I guess you take a physical every year, and if you're passed, then you continue. Oh, yeah, New York City is 63 years of age. You have to mandatory retire. And today, guys, that's kind of young, right? Because guys today are in shape and eat healthier, and it's not like 30 years ago. or 40 years ago. And now, what about the age to come on, the age limit? So you have to be 21, I assume. And then can you still come on at 35 years old? Is there an age limit to come on the job?
No, there's no, I mean, for example, I had a gentleman in my academy, I won't say his name, but he was 63 in our police academy. And he was running around with the young kids, doing, I mean, it's a lot of running and physical push-ups, paramilitary style academy. And he was in great shape, and he did real well.
Oh, wow. Oh, so there's no, probably no age limit then going on the job or mandatory age to be thrown off the job.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
Getting back to the tourist unit that you're in, I worked in Midtown North Precinct. I was fortunate to work in Midtown Manhattan, Times Square, and we had the unit was called Anti-Crime Unit, ACU. And what we did in Midtown, like certain other precincts would concentrate on different types of crimes, but in Midtown, same thing. We would do the pickpockets. We would follow the pickpockets, and of course, at some point, they would hit on a tourist, and it was amazing. But we would filter in with the crowd, and daytime in Midtown Manhattan as well as nighttime for the Broadway shows. It's very busy, but we would be out there and we would do the pickpockets, as well as the robberies and anything else that happened. We would just try to mingle with the crowd. Summertime, wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and a little baggie with a weapon and cuffs, etc. But it was a great unit. I did it from 89 to 93, anti-crime unit. And again, in Midtown North and just like Midtown South Precinct and maybe some other commands, we concentrated on pickpockets. So it was a lot of fun, and you meet people from all over the world. I know in Vegas where you are, the Strip, I'm sure, and I was fortunate to meet people from all over the world as well, working in Midtown.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. Like I can only imagine being in New York and seeing just that sea of people, and you got to pick out the bad guy who's doing the bad things. But for us, it's pretty easy. After a couple of years, you could just look through a crowd and be like, all right, worker, local, tourist. That's who I need to look at. And then sure enough, give them a few minutes and you're like, okay, I got them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's great to work out there because it's just like Midtown Manhattan. Every day there's tourists, there's events going on, et cetera, so many things going on. Now what area, Las Vegas PD, like, is it just, I guess all of Las Vegas, Nevada is what you would respond to if there's an incident?
Yeah, so we were so in the 70s we had a city of Las Vegas police and we had the sheriff's office, and they merged into Las Vegas Metro. So we're all of Clark County. Okay, it's a huge area, so it covers all the way from Mesquite, Nevada to Searchlight, Nevada. So it's a giant corner of southern Nevada. So we have not just Las Vegas, but we have Searchlight, Bullhead City. I mean, well, that's right outside of Laughlin, but you have just a giant area that is all our jurisdiction.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah.
Which is why we work for a sheriff as opposed to like a chief.
Oh, okay. And I guess vacation time is no problem. The overtime, no problem, right? I'm sure you guys do well out there with the overtime as well.
No, Las Vegas takes care of us. We're, one of the cool things about being in Vegas is there's a lot of philanthropy in Las Vegas. A lot of people love the cops, take care of our people. And so between citizens' donations and the actual revenue of, Las Vegas and Nevada being the city and the state is not hurting for funding. So we're very well funded. We're very taken care of. Private citizens donate just mountains of money to the police department constantly. So I would say we're very, very spoiled with those things for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any NYPD guys that went out there to work?
Yeah, I worked for our number 2 on the department was a longtime NYPD guy, and you know it as soon as you hear him talk. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You could tell he's a New Yorker.
He's the number 2 now?
Yeah. Don't want to say his name
Okay.
exactly on
It's all
here,
good.
but
No, well,
yeah,
absolutely.
our number two is a NYPD guy.
Yep.
Long
And
time.
now I know who you're speaking about. Yep. We can
Yeah,
chat
good.
later. All good.
He's one in a million. He's a great guy.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. A lot of you now, when you guys retire, I'm sure a lot of you guys go to work for the casinos out there, I would think, or the hotels.
Yeah, some do. Some will go work private security. Some will go off and do other things. But
Right.
yeah, there's a big circle of that.
Right. Now, tell me. I understand you're also involved in raising funds for the Wounded Blue.
Yeah, for sure.
You want to tell me
Randy
about that?
Sutton, absolutely. As kind of my career was making its last lap on the track, I got into an incident, had a hostage rescue at work where I got into a shooting and took a man's life, and we were put on administrative leave for just the regular investigation that goes on with that. And my personal life was just taking a real sharp downward spiral, and some of the things that were going on. So long story short, I started journaling, and just kind of therapy was my journaling, and telling stories throughout my career of cool things that I had seen. And the journaling kind of evolved into, essentially a book, a fictional book, have it. So when I finished the book and started giving it to the editing team and the people who helped work on the fine tuning of it, the people said, "Hey, there's a lot of potential in this. We really like what you did here. Just be prepared. You're going to make a lot of money on this," which is very rare for a first time author, And so I kind of was sitting down and I'm thinking about like all the stories I was telling. They're just things that I had seen, but they weren't exactly my stories. And so I just kind of didn't feel right about, taking the money or earning money off of someone else's stories. So I made a decision to donate the proceeds of that book to Randy Sutton's Wounded Blue. And as soon as I made that decision, it was just like, okay, this no longer feels gross about taking money for, essentially telling somebody else's story. Now I'm making money for a good cause. And so we've given every penny to the Wounded Blue that we made on this book, and it's done pretty well.
We've had Randy on the show, on
Yeah.
the podcast. It's amazing some of the stories he was telling us.
He's a
some
great
of
guy.
how some of the departments don't have the long-term care for certain situations, and funds available to them, so they have to go outside and raise the funds. Interesting, very interesting.
Well, it's one of the reasons why we picked the Wounded Blue is because there's a lot of charities that do a lot of good things, and there's a lot of people out there all really concerned about cops. But the difference with the Wounded Blue is I know Randy, like I know him personally, and I can tell you I've had dinner with that man. I've sat down with him for hours on end and talked to him, and I don't think there's very many people on this planet that give a crap more than Randy Sutton.
Yeah.
So
No, he does.
like I know his heart, I know where he's at, and so I know if I give him the money for this stuff, he does the right thing with it. He's an amazing human being.
It's going to the right place for sure.
Absolutely.
How's the mental health with the police department out there with the guys? Is it like suicides rate is high, low?
That's a real good question. I think, I have a side gig where I get to go out and teach police tactics to people all over the country. And I get to meet a lot of people from a lot of departments. And I kind of noticed, we've always had problems in law enforcement.
Right.
We've had it since you were on the job. We've had it now since I was on the job. But I think probably within the last 5 years, it's finally become a point that people want to start talking about it. So I think we've always had those issues you probably have had a lot of your friends commit suicide and take their own lives. And I have as well. I've had academy classmates and partners and good friends. But within the last 5 years, we've really started to take a look at this. And specifically here in Metro, we got a sheriff recently within the last couple of years. And this is a man who has a lot of personal connections to the mental health issues. And so he took on himself to open up what we call a wellness bureau. And it's kind of a one-stop shop from physical health to nutrition to mental health, family, spiritual, the whole thing wrapped up in one. So we got a sheriff who was very, 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 very pro mental health, and not just mental health. We call it the Wellness Center. And which is part of the reason why I'm allowed to get on these podcasts and talk about this stuff all the time, is because he knows that at the end of the day, if we're talking about this kind of stuff, then we're going to help somebody.
Right.
He's okay with it. So
Cool.
really proud to have this guy in office right now. And he really understands that a lot of people out there are hurting. So grateful for him to allow us to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a tough subject. A lot of guys and girls don't want to talk about it for many reasons. Besides the department maybe looking down on you or taking your weapons away, and which I understand as well. But because of that, people don't want to speak about it. So it's nice that folks like you and organizations you have, as well as we have here in New York, are starting to work well together and hopefully get the suicide rate down to zero. What made you write the book? October Strong.
Well, I mean, it started out really, I mean, just like I said, my therapy, I would go sit and talk to these doctors, and they're nothing against therapists. They're great folks. They get into the job for the right reasons. They want to help cops out, but it just wasn't working for me, and I wasn't horrible in my position, but I was struggling. I definitely had some hard times with it, but sitting there talking to a doctor about like, oh, maybe you should go to the gym, or maybe you should try this. And it wasn't doing anything for me. And I just didn't respond to the one-on-ones with the doctors at all. I just didn't want to hear what they had to say. Cause even though they're good people, in the back of my mind, I'm like, you don't care, you're here till that clock says, oh, your hour's up. Have a nice day, but they care, but I didn't, so
you feel like they're just going through the motions. You're not really, trying to help you.
For sure. I can check that box. I can say what I need to say to get back to work. But when I found myself starting to journal and write down stories, I would get in these really, really dark moments, and I would just start typing. And when I would start typing, I would get kind of emotional typing, and it just was like me pouring my heart into the words. And so that really, and I was able, the good thing is I was able to recognize that was beneficial for me. And so that's kind of one thing I want to mention, is that I wasn't doing it unknowingly. Like once I started doing it, I caught on pretty quick that, okay, this is now my thing. This is the thing that's going to bring me peace and not have me drink myself to sleep every night, which I was doing. So when I started being able to put things down on paper and leave the bottle alone, and I recognized that became my go-to. So I would sit down at my kitchen table and I would just start plugging away, telling the stories. And essentially, like, when people read the book and they give me feedback, I can't tell you, it's rare for me to hear from someone who's read it and they tell me they didn't cry their eyes out. And they're like, you're such a passionate storyteller. And I'm like, no, I'm not a real passionate storyteller. I'm just putting my heart into those words and you can feel it. And so it really became kind of a selfish therapy session for me. But what ended up happening was something I totally did not expect. And that was that it would impact other people. And so when I started hearing feedback of, I had a gentleman from Boston who was a fire captain reach out to me and tell me some things that were pretty personal, but he had gotten out of the book. And I was just like, whoa, time out. Like, I was not expecting that. It was just meant for my health, and it ended up helping somebody else. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what else can we do to make guys get better? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was a list, I guess, a list of things that transpired while you were on the Las Vegas Police Department that brought you to that point.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. And we won't speak about any of that. But I would like to ask you, do you have any really good stories you could tell us about Las Vegas PD,
What's funny is a lot of the, okay, I'll tell a good one. A lot of the stories from the tourist crimes day, I don't know what kids.
That'd be interesting to hear them.
Yeah. A lot of those stories probably are best not told.
Yeah, exactly. Not here later.
Yeah. Those are the kinds you tell over a whiskey and cigar.
Exactly. Look forward to having one with you in Vegas next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I think part of my experience as a generalized detective was some of the most beneficial parts of my career, because when you're a patrol officer, like if you get a big case, you get there, you make sure the scene's safe, you separate the witnesses, then the detectives come and you're done, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when you're a generalized detective in a bad area, the call would come and you would get there pretty quick. And so you were able to like interview the victims, see the scene, talk to the folks, and then go investigate it. And then we would go even capture the bad guy, right?
Right.
So I had a guy who was kind of a day laborer type, and he was just, working landscaping and that kind of stuff. And his family lived in Mexico, and he was basically working every day as a landscaper and sending all his money back home so that his kids could go to school. And they lived in a nice house, and his kids were going through a well education in Mexico. So he was doing like the ideal worldly. I mean, he was being a great dad for his family, and he was bringing a pizza back to his hotel, and a girl came up to him, started talking to him, and he was kind of like blowing her off, telling her to go away. And her pimp came up behind him and punches the guy in the face, took his wallet with like $50 in it. That's it. And then they left. So normally they wouldn't call detectives for that. But when he got punched in the face, basically his eye had exploded. He got hit in the face so hard that his eye popped like a grape. And so we got to come out there and we got to talk to the guy. He didn't speak any English. We got him to the hospital, and there was a lot of miscommunication about the doctor was telling him they had to remove the eye so that it wouldn't infect the other eye and he'd be completely blind, but he didn't understand what they were saying. And so we quickly became just invested in this guy. We could tell that he was just a good dude going out there working for his family. And so we got to spend a lot of time with the guy. And I was pretty passionate about this one because I just felt like it was nonsense. The guy he lost his eye for $60, just complete nonsense. Mm-hmm. So I took it on my personal mission to catch the people who did this. And we had a grainy video from like a courtyard, and we had nothing. Like we could see a vague description of the suspect, and there was a female and a guy, and that's about it. Well, we ended up seeing a tattoo on the female's leg right on her upper thigh, and that's all we had. So we put out some information. Hey, we're looking for a white female with a tattoo on her thigh like this, and this is what happened. And sure enough, with a couple of days later, one of my friends in patrol calls me. He's like, hey, there's a working girl walking down Fremont Street with that tattoo on her leg. And right behind her, about 20 feet behind her, is this guy who matches the description you were saying. So we grabbed them. We talked to him. Come to find out, the suspect who punched the guy in the eye, he had just gotten out of prison for like the 13th time for doing robberies. He confessed to the whole thing. She confessed to the whole thing. The case was locked up tight, wrapped with a bow. Perfect. So I go to court. I'm sitting in the courtroom, and the suspects are both there, and my victim is nowhere to be seen. Nowhere. And I'm looking around, and they're going to dump this whole case because the victim's not here.
Right.
And so in the back of my head, I'm like, well, he probably just doesn't understand the court process. He doesn't understand English. He doesn't know that he needs to be here, and they're about to dump this whole case, and this guy's going to lose his eye for $60. So I told the attorney, I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I'll be about an hour. And so I went and I ran downstairs. I got in my car and I went straight to his house where he lived, and I'm pounding on the door, and he's not answering the door. So kind of like look in the window, and I don't know if this was good or bad, but we look in the window, we could see him asleep in there. And so we're just screaming at him, hey, get up, police. And he's a little intoxicated because he worked the night before. And so he kind of comes to the door half drunk, and we're like, police, come here. And we kind of grab him. And so he's thinking in his mind, he's getting arrested or kidnapped by the cops, and so he's like, what's going on? I'm like, you got court, dude. And he doesn't understand anything. So I take off my coat. I put it on him. We put him in the car. We drive him to court. I run him in there and sit him down. And he is just like, what is going on? And the attorney's like, okay, you brought the victim, so we can go through with it. But for me, it was just a good feeling because I don't think he understood the process, and I don't think he understood what was on the line. And so being a generalized detective, I got to go to the scene. I got to find the bad guy, and then I got to go all the way to the end in court and make sure that he got the justice he deserved for losing his eye. So a lot of fun in those days.
So what was the outcome? Basically, he was convicted and went to jail?
Yeah, he was. I don't remember the years and the stuff but it ended up being good for us. He got the justice.
So on that note, brings me to my next question. How is the justice system out in Las Vegas?
Well, I think most justice systems are, this is just my opinion, but a lot of them are based off of kind of the general area you're living. I know a lot of systems out there are struggling right now because of political reasons versus what's actually the right thing. Right now, I think Las Vegas is pretty good. We have decent district attorneys, we have decent judges, and we have different.
Good.
We have a pretty good backing. So I look at it right now as we're not one of those jurisdictions that's struggling with the nonsense you'll read on TV. I think we're doing pretty good here.
Great. That's good to hear because New York's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
NYPD locks up people every day, and they're out before the cops finish the paperwork. It's ridiculous. But I always say it's got to get better. Can't get any worse. It has to get better, and hopefully it will real soon. October Strong. Tell us, our audience, how they could purchase your book, and also how they could get a hold of you if they wanted to.
Sure. October Strong is going to be on Amazon. We are about to release the Audible version with Randy is reading it. So Randy Sutton will be the narrator for October Strong.
I look forward to that one.
Yeah, I can't believe we got him to do that. But so it's probably fastest if you get it on Amazon.com. We do have a website, octoberstrong.com. They can purchase it from the website there. They offer a hardback signed copy that they can purchase there. But Amazon's probably the quickest. It's on Kindle. It's on Audible. It will be on Audible. It's on all the platforms they can find. Okay. For specifics on reaching out to me, I'm on some social medias, but I don't really post much on any of them. I am on LinkedIn, Allyn Goodrich, and that's probably where people can find me most if they want to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit.
Okay. Great. How much is the book?
I think it's about $13 or $14.
Okay. Great. Fantastic. I highly recommend folks, our listeners, to purchase October Strong and support all the good work that Allyn Goodrich is doing. Allyn, so when do you have any plans to come to New York?
Yeah, I actually will be there in April.
April. Okay. You spend a weekend, a week? Is it training or?
Yeah, I'll be teaching at New York Tactical.
Oh, okay. For the entire week?
I think so. Yeah, I'll be up there for probably 7 or 8 days.
Oh, great. Look forward to seeing you in person then,
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up our interview?
Well, I appreciate you bringing up the mental health stuff because,
Sure.
I know there's a lot of guys out there who are getting on the job and who are excited to be cops and the, chasing bad guys story and that kind of stuff gets people excited. I understand that. But I appreciate you bringing up the mental health stuff because there's a lot of guys like you and I are spending a lot of time on the job that just don't know what to do. And so if I could leave you with this, I don't think that there's one answer for everybody. I think there's a lot of answers for a lot of people. And I just want to encourage people to, go find what works for you. If talking to a doctor is it, good. If going to the gym is it, good. If, journaling is good for you, good. If nature is good for you, good. If working on your Corvette is good for you, good. Find your thing, whatever it is, because I think it's ridiculous that the epidemic is so bad that people are taking their own lives. And I think it's nonsense and I think it's ridiculous. And we got to do a better job as a community at helping out our brothers because what we do and what we see every day, it's heavy and it changes you forever. And if you're doing the job, you can't avoid it and you cannot get around it. But there are ways to deal with it and there are ways to live with it and there are ways to still be a good dad, a good father, a good brother. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I would just encourage people to go out there and find their thing.
Yeah. We'll have you back. We'll have some other folks on too. We'll have you back and we could just do a whole segment on mental health throughout with law enforcement. That would be great if you'd be willing to do that.
I would enjoy that a lot. Yeah.
That'd be great. We're going to do that for sure. We have that in the works as it is, and this is perfect. We'll have you on as well. It's amazing speaking again about mental health with the police department. Unfortunately, the last 2 or 3 NYPD officers who killed themselves were young guys, not much time on the job. And, it's different. It's just a lot of stress, and the police departments now, especially in NYPD, they're short manpower, so the guys working overtime, and of course everyone likes overtime to pay extra bills, but at the same token, you're here every day. You need some time off to spend with your friends and your family, and I'm not saying that's the cause of it, but it's just, and then guys, I guess, don't want to talk about it because they're young, they're macho, it's tough. But the last 2 or 3, I believe, in New York here were young men, and shame. And, it's, so hopefully we could help anyone in the future. That'd be great. Allyn, Allyn Goodrich, active police officer, SWAT team. I like that. The SWAT team in Las Vegas. I like that, SWAT. That's pretty cool. Now, do you guys patrol, or you just turn out of a like a firehouse concept?
No, we're not on patrol. We're a full-time active duty team. So that's all we do is high-risk search warrants, barricaded individuals, and hostage rescues. So we're actually probably one of the busiest teams in the country. So that's our full-time gig. That's all we do. And, we do have a central area that we have, equipment and stuff, but we basically work from our trucks.
That's okay. Cool. Well, yes, you here in New York, they pretty much work out of a station house. They do some patrol until they get called when they really need it, or they'll be at the house and waiting to be called out, and they'll respond to the big jobs. I remember when I was in the academy, they told us, when the public needs help, they call 911 and we respond, and then when you need help, you call emergency service. They respond. And I guess the same thing with the SWAT team out in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Allyn Goodrich, thank you so much for being our guest today on Cop Talk. Look forward
Kevin.
to having you on again. And be safe out there. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening today. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe to Cop Talk. You could also follow us on X at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, God bless you. God bless America. God bless our military. God bless law enforcement throughout the world. Thank you.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.